November 20th, 1943. Betio Island, Tarawa Iwo, Gilbert Islands. The pre-dawn darkness gives way to thunder native bombardment as battleships manned and Kora pounds Japanese 60-inch shells. Nogun breeds designed marine divine weighed 340, the 19-foot ground call reef 500 yards from shore. Among them, Staff Sergeant William Bordelon of the 1st Battalion, 18th Marines grips his equipment bag containing demolition charges, while his M1911A1 pistol rides secure in its holster, already soaked in seawater, but mechanically perfect. The Japanese defenders, 4th Argent 500 strong under Admiral Keiji Shibazaki, have transformed the tiny coral island, left in thief queer mags, into switchers. Their officers carry the Type 14 Nambu pistol, the Empire's standard sidearm chambered in 8 by 22 mm. As the Marines struggle through the killing field of the lagoon, Japanese machine guns up from concealed hillside. The Aztec low tide turned what should have been a quick amphibious assault into a desperate wade through waist-deep water under murder's sigh. What unfolds over the next 76 hours will demonstrate with mathematical precision the superiority of American small arms design, particularly the M1911A, one firing its devastating 45 ACP cartridge, over Japanese weapons that fail when needed most. In the coast quotas of Tarawa, where combat distances shrink to feet and inches, the difference between a 230-grain bullet delivering 370 foot-pounds of energy and a 100-grain projectile with barely 220 foot-pounds becomes the difference between life and death. The battles raiding across the Pacific in 1943 reveal fundamental truth that transcends mere technical specifications. The chasm between American and Japanese military sidearms reflects not just different land philosophy, but vastly different industrial capabilities, technical doctrines, and understanding of what makes an effective combat weapon. The M1911A1 automatic pistol, firing 45 automatic count pistol cartridge, represents the culmination of decades of American combat experience and industrial innovation. The TAC-15 Nambu, with its underpowered 8mm round and fragile mechanism, embodies Japan's struggle to match Western military technology, while lacking the industrial base and combat feedback necessary for effective weapons development. This disparity would manifest itself in every close-quarters engagement from Guadalcanal to Okinawa. With the thunder, the American 45 consistently overwhelmed the inadequate pop of the Japanese 8mm. The four of the two weapons is a tale of ballistics and manufacturing. It is the story of how industrial supremacy and engineering excellence determine victory in modern warfare. The genesis of the M1911A1 lies not in the Pacific, but in the Philippine jungles 4 decades earlier. During the Philippine-American War of 1899 to 1902, American troops faced a horrifying tactical crippling that would reshape military sidearm development forever. The Moro Juramentados, Muslim warriors who bound their limbs with leather to prevent blood loss and ingested native drugs to dull pain, launched suicidal charges against the magazines. The standard army sidearm, the Colt Model 1892 double-action revolver chambered in 38 long coal, whose Thompson-LaGarde. Colonel Thompson-LaGarde documented the Tube Glenn Clunter and his medic replugs. Soldiers would empty their revolvers into charging Moros, placing multiple shots en masse, only watching how their attackers continue forward to kill Americans with blade weapons. The Guard's 1904 report described Antonio Caspi, shot 4 times at close range with .38 rounds, 3 balls bursting of Lars, 1 pulging and peeking through the boy, who continued forging until finally started by a rifle butt to a ford. The 38 Long Coat's 150-grain bullet at 770 feet per second simply lacked the kinetic energy transfer necessary for immediate incapacitation. Its failure prompted the most comprehensive ballistic study ever undertaken for military soldiers, The Thompson-LaGarde tests of 1904. Colonel John T. Thompson, who later developed the Thompson submachine gun, and Major Louis Anatole LaGarde of the Medical Corps were tasked with determining the minimum effective caliber for military pistols. At the Nelson Morris Company Ewing Stockyard in Chicago, a conducted test be considered barbaric by modern standards provided crucial scientific data. The tests involved shooting live cattle and human cadavers with various caliber 7.65 by 21 mm parabellum, .30 Luger, 9 by 19 mm parabellum, .38 long coat, .38 ACP, .45 coat, 476 Ely, and 455 Webley. A methodology was precise, recording time to incapacitation per live animal, measuring body sway and suspended cadavers, examining wound count through dissection and the newly developed X-ray technology. The results were critical. Animals shot with .30 Luger showed minimal distress even after 10 rounds, though it with 9 mm or .38 calibers showed great effect. Huffel acquired 8 more shots. Animals struck with .45 caliber rounds typically collapsed by the fourth shot, with immediate and severe physiological trauma event. The cadaver tests revealed even more dramatic differences. When bullets struck bone shrines, the researchers assigned numerical values to body oscillation. The .45 caliber rounds consistently produced 2 to 3 times more wounds than 4 calibers. The board concludes absolute. A bullet, which will have the shock effect and sign vect short rangers necessary for a military pistol or revolver, should high caliber less than .45 inches, denoted the bloody threshold. No amount of velocity increase within handgun parameters could compensate for insufficient bullet mass. John Moses Browning, already renowned for his firearms innovations, had been working with Colt on a 41 caliber semi-automatic pistol when the Army's requirements became clear. Browning rapidly scaled his design to accommodate a 45 caliber cartridge, creating what became the Model 1905. The cartridge underwent several iterations between Colt, Winchester PEI, Franklin Arsenal, and Union Type Papers Kaimi. The Ring, a 200-grain bullet at 900 feet per second, evolved into the standardized military load, a 230-grain full-metal jet bullet at 850 feet per second from 5-inch Berry. The Broin's divine lean simplicity and robustness. A M19 Han utilized foot cooperation with a fin-linked Lord Para engagement with the sight during second. The single-action trigger provided a consistent, crisp pull. 2 safety mechanisms, a grip safety that must be depressed and a manual thumb safety, prevented accidental discharge while allowing rapid deployment. The 7-round detachable magazine to be quickly changed, and the pistol would fire the chambered round even without magazine inserted, crucial when magazines were damaged or lost. The pistol underwent extensive testing from 1906 to 1911, competing against designs from Savage, Luger, and others. The torture tests are extraordinary, firing 6 other rounds as rapidly as possible, complete in 27 ends, dunking the heated pistol in water, mud, and sand between strings of fry. The Browning Colt design functioned flawlessly. On March 29, 1911, the U.S. Army formally adopted the automatic pistol, calendar .45, model of 1911. World War I combat experience led to refinements incorporated in the M1911A1, standardized in 1924. The improvements addressed Sornja feedback from attendees, a shorter trigger to accommodate more hind, scalloped cats in the fine behind the trigger for better reach, an arched mainspring housing for improved natural pointing, a longer grip safety spur to prevent hammer bite, wider sight for faster acquisition, and a Schoten-Tam spur to de-snang. Each chase, while seeing EMI, affected the Mark military's systematic approach to incorporating car glazing and equipment development. A .45 ACP cartridge cell represented optimized ballistic performance within practical constraints. operating at relatively low 21,000 psi chamber pressure, compared to 35,000 psi for 9mm parabolon. The round prioritized reliability and barrel longevity. The 230 brain projectiles points for performance diameter created a wound title significantly larger than Scalby to tissue displacement. At 830 feet per second, the bullet traveled just below the speed of sound, avoiding the instability that occurs during transonic flight. A heavy bullet retained energy well, maintaining lethal force even to extended handgun ranges of 50 yards. When America entered World War II, the M1911A1 production transformed from peacetime trickle to wartime flood, demonstrating a working industrial might at Apex. Coates Manufacturing Company, holder of the original patents and production expertise, immediately expanded production at their Hartford, Connecticut facility. But even Coates' maximum capacity, approximately 800 pistols per day by 1943, could not meet demand. The Ordnance Department, under Brigadier General Gladian Bond, orchestrated one of the most successful distributed manufacturing practices of the war. Unlike the artificial approach required for complex weapons, the M1911 A1's robust design allowed mass production techniques. Contracts went to companies with no previous firearms experience but strong manufacturing capabilities. Remington Round, the typewriter manufacturer, received their first contract in March 1942. Their Syracuse, New York plant, retooled from producing typing machines and adding devices, ultimately manufactured 877,751 M1911 A1 pistols, more than any other contractor including Colt. Their production methodology revolutionized pistol manufacturing. Extensive use of stamping instead of forging, automated checkering of grit frames, and statistical quantity control that maintained tolerances when speeding production. Ithaca Gun Company of New York, traditionally a shotgun manufacturer, produced 369,129 pistols. Their innovative use of invisible casting for smooth parts reduced machining time by 60 cents. Union Switch and Signal Company, Smithville, Pennsylvania, a railroad gun manufacturer, produced 45,000 pistols of exceptional quality, incorporating improved heat treatment processes that extended barrel life by 30%. The Singer Manufacturing Company's contribution, numerically of five-car pistols, demonstrated American industrial flexibility. Some machine manufacturers produced anti-Christian guns of such quality that they remained most sought after M1911A1 varies collectors. Singer developed tooling and processes later transferred to other manufacturers, multiplying their impact beyond their direct production. Part standardization was absolute. Any component from a manufacturer would function in a frame. Tolerances were deliberately loose. 0.003 to 0.005 inches are most critical dimensions, ensuring function despite manufacturing variations, fuel contamination, or thermal expansion. This interchangeability proved crucial when depot-level maintenance offering involved assembling functional pistols from components of multiple damaged weapons. Downing has Spartan matched weapon production. Thank the Arthmal Aomi's primary ammunition facility produce over wind-bane rounds of 45 ACP in the war. Western Cartridge Company, Remington Arms, and Winchester Repeating Arms added another 2 billion rounds. Quality control was stringent. Every lot underwent accuracy testing, pressure testing, and function testing in multiple weapons. Specifications remained consistent throughout production. 230 grain bullet, 5.0 grains as powder, either bullseye or similar burning rate, producing 830 feet per second velocity plus or minus 25 feet per second. Special ammunition variants demonstrated American innovation. The M12 shot cartridge, developed for aircrew survival kits, contained 118 pieces of number 7.5 birdshot in a paper capsule, effector the gun's small gain to 10 feet. The improved M15 shot cartridge used a blue wax cap seal for better moisture resistance. Tracer round for training allowed shooters to see their bullet parts. Proof loads marked with static stained cases. Tested loss P pressure resistance during manufacturing. The Marine Corps table of organization evolution reflected combat lessons about pistol importance. In 1942, a Marine division authorized 798 pistols, primarily for officers, NCOs, and crew-served weapon teams. By December 1943, at Tarawa, it increased to 1,377. By 1945, the authorization reached 1,707 pistols per year. 4 Marine divisions on Okinawa and Chile carried WW2s and M1911A1s, with many riflemen acquiring pistols through unofficial channels. Distribution prioritized combat units. The 2nd Marine Division, Tarawa, carried 1,456 M1911A1 pistols for approximately 18,000 Marines, 1 per 12 men. By Iwo Jima, the 5th Marine Division carried 1 times WW2 patrols to combat units, 1 by 10 men. All units showed seal pads. The 77th Infantry Division on Okinawa carried 1,234 M1911A1s among 16,000 soldiers. The Type Fulgine Nambu represented Imperial Japan's attempt to create a modern military sidearm, but its development history reveals the fundamental limitation, a Dumaton comment. Colonel Kijiro Nambu, often called the John Browning of Japan, designed his first semi-automatic pistol in 1902. This Type A Grandpa Nambu superficially resembled the Luger with its spout bow distinct in old Okinawa, operated on entirely different pistols. The Type 14, adopted anti-show 14, 1926 in Western Canada, evolved for R&D Nambu design, but incorporated supposed improvements based on Japanese military experience in China. The pistol utilized a lock breech mechanism with a fleeting-looking look, keenly sound at acquiring precise manufacturing tolerances. The 8x22mm Nambu cartridge, unique to Japanese weapons, fired 102 brain bullet on approximately 1,065 feet per second from the Type's 14-inch 4.6-inch para. On paper, certain specifications seem superior to the M1911A1. The Type 14 held 8 rounds versus 7. Muzzle velocity exceeded the 45 ACP by 200 feet per second. The pistol weighed 2.03 pounds unloaded, nearly half a pound less than the M1911A1. Initial production models from Nagoya Arsenal and Kokura Arsenal showed excellent craftsmanship, with deep bluing and careful hand-fitting of parts. However, the surface advantages mined fundamental flaws. The 8x22mm Nambu cartridge, despite high velocity, generated only 256 foot-pounds of muzzle handy compared to applying full foil NVP free-handle 69 foot-pounds, a 41% acid. The lightweight wound 2-grain bullets of velocity amply, retaining only 180 foot-pounds at 50 yards versus 300 foot-pounds for the .45 ACP. The bottleneck case design, while theoretically aiding feeding, created extraction problems when chamber found. Japanese military procurement doctrine created shinkangains. Unlike American forces issue weapons, Japanese officers bought pounds approaches the firearms for the SAI. A Type 14 cost 78 yen in 1940, approximately half a lieutenant's monthly pay. This economic barrier meant many officers received minimal training, viewing the pistol as a status symbol rather than a combat tool. Some officers, particularly those from wealthy families, purchased foreign pistols instead. Spanish ruby pistols in .32 ACP or inherited European revolver were common. The Type 14's design philosophy reflected Japanese technical doctrine that prioritized spiritual power over firepower. The Imperial Japanese Army's infantry manual devoted more pages to sword technique than pistol marksmanship. Pistols were considered weapons for executing prisoners, controlling subordinates, and ritual suicide, not primary combat tools. This doctrinal blindness prevented recognition of design flaws that would prove fatal in combat. Manufacturing quality deteriorated catastrophically the war progressed. Pre-war Type 14F featured 17 state inspection dams, careful polishing, and amphib parts. By 1943, inspection marks reduced to 3, surface finishing eliminated, and parts interchangeability degraded severely. Late war production from the Toriyamatsu factory showed tool marks, rough casting, and dimensional variations that would have failed pre-war inspection. The Type 14's most critical design failures centered on its controls and magazine system. The safety lever, positioned on the left side above the trigger bar, required the shooting heart to shift grip or the support can to operate, and portable when wood, carrying equipment or grappling with an enemy. The magazine release, a spring-loaded lever at the bottom front of the grip, often released inadvertently during handling, leaving the pistol unable to fire due to the magazine disconnect safety. The 1959 modification added a magazine retention spring, intended to prevent loss of magazines. This improvement made combat reloading nearly impossible. Magazines had to be yanked out against spring pressure, often requiring both hands. In tropical conditions, corrosion welded magazines in place. Marines reported capturing Type 14 with magazines frozen side, hammered unsuccessfully in desperate attempts to reload. Production statistics revealed upon industry limitations. From 1926 to 1945, approximately 4,000 Type 14 pistols were manufactured across all are sold to contractors. Monthly production peaked at 3,500 units in 1944, but quality was abysmal. The Nambu Rifle Manufacturing Company, Tokyo Company, and Tokyo Gas and Electric subsidiaries produced pistols with such poor quality control that parts from different manufacturers, or even different production runs from the same factory, would not interchange. The Type 14 Nambus failed in combat weren't isolated incidents, but systematic design flaws that reflected fundamental misunderstanding as combat requirements. Each deficiency, perhaps tolerable in isolation, combined to create a weapon that failed catastrophically under Pacific combat conditions. The safety mechanism represented the most immediate tactical liability. Located above the trigger guard on left eye, the safety lever required either shifting the firing grip, luring like pit on tree at finger position, or using the support hand. In close combat where milliseconds mattered, this two-handed operation proved fatal. Marines reported numerous instances of Japanese officers futilely attempting to disengage safeties while being overrun. The M1911 A1's ambidextrous safety, operable with the thumb of the firing hand or maintain grip in trigger position, could be disengaged while joined for the holster. The magazine disconnect safety, intended to prevent accidental discharge with the magazine removed, transformed into a critical wallaby. When magazines were damaged, lost, or frozen in place by corrosion, the entire weapon became inoperable. Unlike the M1911A1, with 5-chambered run-mouth magazine, the Type 14 required a functioning properly seated magazine to operate. In the coral sand, Tarawa, or volcanic ash of Iwo Jima, where magazines were easily damaged, the feature wemmed countless Type 14s easily. The Type 14 lacked a slide hold open device. When the last round fired, only the magazine followed the boat open. Moving the magazine allowed the butt to stand forward, in no occasion weapons empty. In combat, shooters discard empty chambers only when treads clicked uselessly. M1911A1 slide lock, activated by the magazine fire, held the side open for the light round, providing immediate visual and tactile indication of an empty weapon while speeding reloading. Extraction fadings plate Type 14, particularly with deteriorating ammunition quality. But that 8x22mm case, theoretically superior for feeding, Pre-Defuelberungsoffice Tractal. Combined with what ammunition using corrosive primates and intensiten raus, cases stuck in chambers or ripped through by extractors. The straight world .45 ACP case, with its larger bearing surface and lower pressure, extracted reliably even from fouled chambers. The recoil spring assembly, a complex dual spring system, required precise manufacturing and maintenance. When springs lost tension, accelerated by tropical heat and humidity, cycling became erratic. Failure to return to battery was common, requiring manual slide manipulation. The M1911 A1's single recoil spring, even when weakened, usually maintained sufficient function for combat effectiveness. Tropical conditions revealed initial vulnerabilities. The Type 14's top manufacturing variances, mind Japan temperquimi, became liabilities in Pisig. Thermal expansion from 115 degrees Fahrenheit temperatures on Paletu caused actions to bind. Monsoon humidity on Guadalcanal created rust of froze mechanisms within days. The M1911 one's deliberately loose tolerances, derided by Tongan shooters of FOPI, allowed function despite thermal expansion, corrosion, or contamination. Field maintenance presented insurmountable challenges. The Type 14 required tools for disassembly, a luxury unavailable in combat. Complete disassembly involved the evil separate operations, rigged losing full rings and pins. The M1911 A1 fields it without tools and second, to press recoil strength plug, rotate pushing, move recoil spring and guide, push out slide stop, remove slide and barrel. Reassembly reversed a process. Ring could feel strip, clean, was available, it couldn't urine when water was scarce, a resummer blindfold and under 30 seconds. A moose and quality compared and carol failies. By 1944, Dabonade and his day Darrell and Bale consistent barrel charges and Brara compounds. Captured ammunition tested by American ordnance units showed velocity variations exceeding 200 feet per second within single lots. Squid loads left bullets lodged in barrels. Subsequent rounds created catastrophic failures. Excessive pressure rounds from double charges cracked frames and bulged chambers. Emulsion purge full 5 ACP ammunition maintained remarkable consistency throughout the war, with velocity variations rarely exceeding 25 feet per second within lots. The true test of these weapons came in the desperate close quarters fighting that characterized Pacific Island combat. On Guadalcanal during the Battle for Henderson Field on October 24th to 25th, 1942, Sergeant John Basilone's 18s demonstrated with the M1911A1's effectiveness and the seamless integration of American weapon systems. While Basilone's famous head of machine gun defense, witnesses reported his extensive use as M1911A1 when Japanese soldiers breached the perimeter. Private Flash Nash Phillips, wounded in the battle, later testified, "At alone other machine gun on the go for 3 days what then sleep west or sud. He was in good placement and causing Japs lots of trouble, not only firing his machine gun but also using his pistol." When Japanese soldiers penetrated the line during hand-to-hand fighting, Basilone's M1911A1 proved decisive. Each 230-grain hollow point put, Marines often modified bar ammunition by cutting crossy in the tips, tiv demise time par. Fibs to squag seemed up on his soldiers, knocked back of their feet by Basilone's pistify. The Japanese sight in the field evolved defensively 3,000 salviv of Sendai division. Marine defenders number fewer than 700 along Basilone's secure. The Japanese achieved local numerical superiority of nearly 5 to 1, necessitating maximum effectiveness from every American weapon. In such circumstances, the difference between the .45 ACP's immediate incapacitation and the 8mm Nambus leather stopping power multiplied equals 100 of individual engagements. At Tarawa, Staff Sergeant William Bordelon's actions, though primarily involving the English and Chatters, included critical moments where small arms made the difference. Bordelon, an engineer with the 1st Battalion, 18th Marines, landing the assault ways on November 20, 1943. His amphibious tractor took newer hit, killing all but 4 of the Marines' ball. Bordelon's mission was to destroy Japanese pillboxes with demolition charges, but it preaching these difference to Kwan's suppressed fire. After placing charges on 2 pillboxes, Bordelon was winded by machine gun fire, his demolition charges exhausted. Marine combat correspondent Staff Sergeant David Dempsey, who witnessed the action, reported the Buddha grabbed a rifle and continued fighting, covering our Marines as untruthful. Our cause focus on the demolition work, a close nature of the fighting made pistols were constantly employed. Bordelon's M1911A1, like those of all Marine engineers, served as his last line of defense while placing charges against enemy positions. The Type 14's combat failures were equally well documented. On Tarawa, Marine Private Robert Sherrod, a Time Life correspondent embedded with the 2nd Marine Division, witnessed Japanese officers' disparate struggle with his Nambu. The Jap officer was screaming at his men, trying to shoot his pistol. He kept pulling the trigger, but nothing happened. The gun was dang, sand me, or bad magazine. Marines shooting the 45 from maybe 20 feet. The Jap flew backward, being hit with his head her. So accounts proliferate was every island battlefield. Japan, June 15, 1944, during the massive Japanese banzai charge that became the largest of the Pacific War. Marine Corporal John D'Alessandro, the 27th Marines, described close combat in pre-dawn darkness. They carried us in waves, officers in front waving sword pistols. I saw when Jap officer Jans clad as Jans Nandu while wearing the lothus. He was working the action factly wide shot end of my 35. One shot center mass and he went down hard. The point full fight would stood him cold. Then pat with a hit in a baseball bat. The mathematical reality stopping par became parents and oft ration make reports. Marine Corps medical personnel document moon characteristics shown by fortified ACP and to all. Weight don't rewind counties exceed 4 inches in diameter, causing immediate blood pressure drop and nervous system disruption. The 8mm Nambu, with its lighter, faster bullet, created wounds barely larger than its caliber, often requiring multiple hits for incapacitation. Lieutenant Colonel Louis Chesty Puller, commanding 1st Battalion, 7th Marines at Guadalcanal, noted in his after-action report. The .45 automatic pistol proved invaluable in repelling Japanese infiltrators and banzai attacks. Multiple instances were observed where single rounds from the .45 immediately stopped attacking Japanese soldiers. Enemy officers armed with their issued pistols failed to inflict casualties even at close range. The disparity between the M1911A1 and Type 14 Nambu reflected fundamentally different military philosophies shaped by distinct cultural and historical experiences. American doctrine, forged in the frontier wars and colonial conflicts, prioritized firepower and individual marksmanship. Japanese doctrine, rooted in samurai tradition and Yamato Damashi, Japanese spirit, emphasized bilateral pile of material advantage. The Thompson-LaGarde test provided American forces with scientific justification for maximum stopping power. The conclusion that nothing less than .45 caliber would suffice became dogma. Thus with me preference but evidence-based requirement. The tests measured not just lethality but immediate incapacitation, the ability to stop an attacker before they could close distance or continue fighting. The temporal element was crucial. In close combat, the difference between immediate and eventual incapacitation measured in American lives. American training reflected the emphasis on practical things. At Parathon and Camp Pendleton, Marines fired thousands of rounds in pistol train. The course began with bullseye marksmanship, learning tree control, sight picture, and breathing. In Picast to combat shooting. Marines learned to fire from retention position with the pistol against their ribs, point shooting without using sights, and engaging multiple targets while moving. The standard qualification required 70% hits on man-sized targets at 25 yards, firing 50 rounds under time pressure. The M1911 A1's manual of arms emphasized combat efficiency. The relied draw technique, though not called that in 1943, was standard, drawing while simultaneously thumbing off the safety finger entering trigger guard only when the muzzle cleared the holster and oriented toward target. Marines practiced malfunction clearances, cap, rack, bang, until they became automacking. Bang to count shocks, reloading for the slide locked back when possible, maintaining continuous fire capability. Japanese pistol training remained minimal and ceremonial. The Imperial Japanese Army's training manual deflated 2 pages to pistol marksmanship versus 12 pages to sword technique. Officers received perhaps 50 rounds of annual training ammunition when available. The emphasis on precision shooting stationary arcs from forces, not combat phase. When the officers arrived in combat and fight through their Type 14s, to work in resfad single train D. Japanese technical doctrine viewed pistols as symbols of authority rather than combat tools. The weapon's primary purposes included maintaining discipline, shooting deserters or cowards, honorable suicide when capturing and executing prisoners. The idea using pistols as primary combat weapons in Seoul seemed absurd when the warrior's sword represented his soul. This philosophical blindness prevented recognition of the pistol's tactical importance in modern close combat. Modern doctrine evolved continuously based on combat feedback. After Guadalcanal, training emphasized shooting from prone and supine positions, coming when wounded or taken kai. After Tarawa, when Marines worked in waist-deep water, training included water operations, keeping weapons dry during landing, clearing water from barrels, and immediate action after emotion. After a post of Japanese infiltrators and Marine futsals, training incorporated weapon retention techniques and contact distance shooting. The ammunition philosophy differed radically. Americans designed a .45 ACP for 1 barrels, action suppen air within practice insurance. Velocity was deliberately kept subsonic to avoid transonic instability. Billet weight maximized momentum transfer. The round's rainbow trajectory distance was relayed. Pistol fights occur within 25 yards. Japanese 8mm Nambu developed prioritized velocity and trajectory, seeking rifle to avoid from a pistol transit. Its pursuit of interpreted characteristics sacrificed stopping power for negligible practical advantage. Cultural factors influenced weapons employment. American intellectualism encouraged personal initiative and adaptation. Marines modified their M1911 A1s with filed sights for faster draw, stipple front stops for depth grip, and shortened triggers for solid hands. Such modifications would have been unthinkable in the Japanese infantry, with confluence absolute and initiative discouraged below senior ranks. The Japanese concept of bamboo spirit, a belief that spirit come material disadvantage, pervade military thinking. When Thai's forces complained about the Type 14's inadequacy against Russians' blood whippers, Japanese advisors responded the Yanwari spirit, non-inferior wabus, caused various. This denial of material reality prevented systematic improvement of weapons systems. American pragmatism demanded measurable things. The Bureau of Nuts conducted continuous testing ammunition performance, accumulating data on velocity, pressure, accuracy, and internal ballistics. Feedback from combating edge-drive modifications, improved magazine springs after reports of feed improvements, harder extractors after reports of extraction failures, enhanced rust preventive finishes for tropical service. Each modification underwent testing before implementation, ensuring improvements at improved voice. The Pacific Theater provided the ultimate proving ground for Ripper's reliability, subjecting British American and Japanese pistols to environmental extremes that were then impossible to replicate in peacetime tension. From the freezing Aleutians to the equatorial Solomons, from coral atolls barely above sea level to volcanic mountains, these environments tested every aspect of weapons design and manufacturing. Guadalcanal's climate represented tropical hill. Rainfall exceeded 200 inches annually, the humidity constantly at 100%. Temperatures ranged from 75 degrees Fahrenheit at night to 95 degrees Fahrenheit daily, but felt like 115 degrees Fahrenheit, according to marine accounts. Metal rusted overnight. Leather rotted within weeks. Wooden stocks whooped and sput. In the combine, the M1911A1's pulverized fish, the phosphate coating of salt oil, proved the period during. On surface vest appeared, the pistol continued functioning. The Type 14's bluied finish, beautiful when new, provided minimal corrosion protection. Surface rust appeared in days, progressing to deep hitting within weeks. Marine Armor Sergeant Thomas Marson with the 4th Marine Division Guadalcanal took into mean challenges in his Juno. The 45s made in a creening, but keep rocking even many hell. We're using motor oil, gun oil, even coconut oil. Anything to keep them ring. The captured Jap pistols rest sod in 3 days. Springs break when you try to force them open. We held par the weak even sell. Tarawa prevented different tides. Calls then finer than token powder infiltrate every mechanil. The oil's lahavitation meant no shade for equatorial thong the heat metal to bring temperatures. Marines wrapped pistol grips with cloth or tape to prevent burns. Water was crankly scarce, 5 gallons per day for battalion, making weapon thin a bubble. The M1911 A1's loose tolerances had functioned despite sand infiltration. Marines ran to work the slide vigorously before use, allowing sands to fall through gaps. The Type 43's tight tolerances meant sand particles locked mechanisms solid. Palayu in September 1944 recorded the highest temperatures of the Pacific War. Official readings reached 115 degrees Fahrenheit. The temperatures in sighting positions along the coral ridges exceed 120 degrees Fahrenheit. Marines suffered more heat casualties than combat wounds on some days. Metal expanded significantly these temperatures. The M1911A1, designed with thermal expansion tolerances, continued functioning. The Type 14, with precise peacetime tolerances, if varied binding spots banded to runjuli. Moon Prabhat Wujun Slend, of K-Comde Subbehind, 5th Marines on Palayu Road. Everything metal was too hot to touch. We wrapped our rifle slings round our hands to carry. Canteens burned our lips. My 45 up round the magazine won't the touch I loot. Bad work, always wrecked. Iwo Jima's volcanic ash breathing to himik chances. To fond bet 10 at to ipu right ukak glatch, highly British. It infiltrated sealed mechanisms, accelerating wear exponentially. The island's south springs created corrosive vapor that etched metal. After 5 weeks of combat, many rifles and machine guns acquired replacement fueled by erosion. M1911. The one pistols with their simple mechanisms and rubric construction maintained function despite accelerating wear. Type 14S suffered extraction failures as chambers eroded and cases stuck. The Aleutian campaign provided opposite extremes. During the May 1943 Attu invasion, temperatures just below freezing with 1 hard mile per hour winds. Lubricants congealed to tar consistency. Breath condensation froze on metal, creating ice that locked actions. The M1911 A1 functioned without lubrication. Soldiers learned to keep oil to the weapons, wring dry. The Type 14's complex dual-recoil spring system required lubrication to function, making inoperable in spring cold. Saltwater immersion during amphibious operations challenged both design. At Tarawa, the range way 500 yards through chest-deep was on fire. Weapons were completely submerged for 10 to 15 minutes. The M1911 A1, designed with drainage channels and minimal enclosed spaces, could be shaken out and would function immediately. The Type 14, with its enclosed trigger mechanism and complex tiles, retained water that had to be disassembled to drain, impossible under fire. Monsoon conditions on New Guinea and the Philippines testing weatherproofing. Rain fell continuously for weeks, making it impossible to keep weapons dry. Everything organic rotted: leather holsters, cloth, wood grips. The M1911 A1's plastic grips, introduced in 1943, were impervious to moisture. Steel parts acquired constant oiling but maintained function. The Type 14's wooden grips, especially on late war models, absorbed moisture, swelling until they cracked frames. The magazine retention spring of the 1939 was in play, making magazine changing impossible. Maintenance supplies affected the flow. American forces ate abundant claying terrains, war brushes, crane rods, practices, CLP, cream look and preserve, and specialized lubricants for extreme conditions. Every Marine carried a pistol cleaning kit. Japanese forces, by 1944, often lacked basic clean supplies. Cartridge Japanese kits include units sharing single clean rods using palm fronds as batteries and motor oil when gun oil is unveiled. Field perforation demonstrated American deputy. Marines led police feed red, Emery Clive to improve thin, relief slide to frame fit with valve grinding compound to improve reliability, and replace recoil springs with springs from damaged weapons to maintain proper tension. Such modifications profound battalion level, kept weapons function despite extreme wear. Japanese forces, lacking spare parts and modification capability, simply discarded malfunctioning Type 14s. The Battle of Okinawa, commencing April 1, 1945, represented the ultimate test of American and Japanese small arms in the Pacific War's largest amphibious operation. Codenamed Operation Iceberg, the invasion pitted 183,000 American soldiers and Marines against 110,000 Japanese defenders on an island that would serve as the staging area for the planned invasion of Japan. The 82-day battle would demonstrate with finality the superiority of American weapons in the war's most savage fighting. Okinawa's terrain differed radically from previous battlefields. The island stretched 60 miles long and varied from 2 to 18 miles wide, featuring open farmland in the north and rugged ridges honeycombed with caves in the south. Japanese Denro Mitsu Uzujima had months to provide fences, creating labyrinths of interconnected caves, tunnels, and fortified positions that would channel American forces into killing zones. These battlefields would demand close-quarters combat, their pistols often turned civil. The American force included the entire Army under Lieutenant General Simon Bolivar Bukanajui, comprising the Army's 24th Corps, 7th, 20th, and 77th in Nagasov Infantry Vins, in the Marines' Food and Amphibious Corps, 1st and 6th Marine Divisions. These units carried over 15,000 M1911A1 pistols, nearly one for every 12 combat troops. Ammunition supplies included 10 mere rounds of 45 ACP. Fulton lessons learned about ammunition conception and Bordelon diversions. The Japanese versus Okinawa, reinforced by naval troops and Okinawan conscripts, represented Japan's last cohesive military force outside the home islands. Officers carried Type 14 emblems. Ammunition shortages were critical. Dutch captures of the Japanese 62nd Division indicate an allocation of 20 rounds per pistol for the entire campaign. By contrast, American forces carried 21 rounds per payload, from Nambu respectively. In ft-lbs on April 1, 1945, Easter Sunday and April Fool's Day, met surprisingly light resistance as Iwo Jima had withdrawn his forces to prepared positions in the south. However, when American forces encountered the Japanese main defensive lines at Kakazu Ridge April night, the battle's true character emerged. The fighting devolved into steadied close-quarter combat, where distances were measured in feet and survive often depended on who could bring fit to firepower to bear fastest. Technical Sergeant Beaufort Anderson of the 96th Infantry Division earned the Medal of Honor on April 13th during the assault on Kakazu Ridge. When his unit was pinned down, Anderson single-handedly touched Japanese position with grenades and SURs. His citation notes he eliminated 25 Japanese soldiers in close combat. Witnesses reported Anderson extensively used the M1911 on A1 when Japanese soldiers emerged from spider holes at point-blank range. The .45 saved my life a dozen times that day, Anderson later stated. When they popped up the holes right under you, there was no time to swing a rifle around. The .45 knocked him down instantly. The Japanese conducted massive counterattacks throughout the battle, culminating in Operation Tengo on May 4, when Iwo Jima launched his entire reserve in a desperate offensive. During this attack, close combat became general for the Empire and Marine Private Fleetcraft held Aga with the 4th Battalion, 10th Marine, where he pushed in the Medal of Honor for evacuating 45 Royal Marines under fire. Witnesses report in Agam carried the M1911 A1 in one hand, while dragging wounded with the other, firing at Japanese infiltrators who approached his casualties. Cave warfare on open hour created unique combat conditions that maximized the importance of pistols. The Japanese had transformed natural caves into elaborate defensive complexes with multiple levels, interconnecting tunnels, and concealed firing ports. Attacking the positions required Marines and soldiers to enter confined spaces where rifles were unwieldy. The M1911 A1 became the primary weapon for K-Curing. Marine Corporal Donald Haas of the 1st Marine Division to guard K-Vine. You threw night for Nate aboard the Okinawa, then going petals and flashwind. The 45 was Pevin a weg. In those confined being, the concussion in the 45 was stunned. He put lights, flashlights taped to the barrel, on our pistols, and see movement, point, and shoot. The .45 would blow Japanese soldiers back into the cave walls. The technical superiority of the .45 ACP in confined spaces became mathematically quantifiable. In caves of pearls, the breath of thighs subsoil velocity meant less owing to mother loss of the shooter while delivering maximum anti-tides. The heavy bullet's momentum carried through web gear and equipment that might deflect lighter, faster projectiles. Terminal ballistic studies conducted post-war showed the 45 ACP created larger temporary wound cavities in gelatin than any other military pistol cartridge, crucial when targets had to be immediately incapacitated in confined spaces where wounded enemies could detonate grenades. Sugarloaf Hill, a small mound that anchored the Japanese Shuri line, became the site of the most intense close combat from May 12th to 18th. The 6th Marine Division suffered over 2,000 casualties taking the single position. Marines attacked 17 times before finally securing the hill. During these assaults, combat often occurred at handshaking distance. Marine cited James Steams recalled, "We were fighting in the rain, in mud up to our meat. Japanese soldiers would emerge from hidden positions right among us. Your rifle would be clogged with mud, at the 45 always work. I threw Marines and Japanese soldiers hit each other from 5 feet apart. The Marine, the 45 always won those encounters." By late May, the failure Japanese small arms began spreading. The 32nd Army's operations officer, Ronald Hiramichi Ihara, wrote in his post-war, "Our Type 14 pistols had become almost useless. Ammunition was nearly exhausted, and those weapons to function often failed due to rain and mud. American soldiers seemed to have a lot of ammunition for their pipe pistols, which could kill mine instantly in perforce. The monsoon season became mid-May, Okinawa and Wamotskip, flock hills filled with woosel, weapons submerged repeatedly. The M1911 A1's drainage channels and loose torrents lied to function despite mud of mine. Marines learned to keep pistol outside their shirts when off in use, in body heat to brand rust. The Type 14, which emerged devoured and touched towards it, became repeatedly clad with mud. Asian quality disparities became extreme by Okinawa. American .45 ACP ammunition maintained consistent performance throughout the campaign. Lot testing showed velocity variations of less than 30 feet per second. No misfires and 100,000 rounds tested. Japanese 8mm Nambu ammunition, produced in 1945 under Bine and Matane short engines, showed catastrophic quality control failures. Captured ammunition test in Palmarka Hortensu throughout. 30% misfires due to faulty primers. Velocity variations exceeding 300 feet per second than single lots. K-ed separations from brittle brass. They blows the light boots and biles. The Japanese did their file organized resistance and the Kian Promessure, Okinawa's southern Tupi merger. Hugh, in the maze of coral creeves and rears, Kwame preached its most primer law. American forces used flamethrowers, demolition charges, and small arms to systematically eliminate Japanese positions. The 96th Infantry Division reported expending 450,000 rounds of 45 ACP ammunition during June alone, more than many divisions used in entire European campaigns. Private Class Desmond Doth, the conscientious objectomatic who was used to carry weapons, provided unique testimony about pistol effectiveness. Serving with the 77th Infantry Division, Doss witnessed countless close combat engagements while treating wounded. In his post-war interviews he stated, "The difference between our 45s and their pistols was like night and day. I saw Japanese officers empty their pistols into our boys who kept fighting. When our boys hit a Japanese soldier with a 45, he went down and stayed down. That pistol saved many American lives." The battle statistics tell the story of American material superiority. American forces suffered 12,520 killed and 36,631 wounded. Tornado said indeed bound day 110 down and down, but 100 down Okinawan veins. The 10-to-1 kill ratio in America's favor reflected superior firepower at every level, from naval guns to individual pistols. In close combat, with individual weapons to tell survival, the M1911 A1 superiority outapplied American victims. The finite counting of M1911 A1 versus Type 14 production reveals more than novels. It exposes the fatal delusion of Imperial Japan attempting to fight an industrial war with artisanal production methods. By war's end, American factories have produced 1,878,742 M1911 A1 pistols between 1941 and 1945. Japan and approximately 400,000 Type 14 pistols over nearly 2 decades from 1926 to 1945. This 4.7-to-1 production ratio during just the war years understates the true disparity when considering quality, standardization, and ammunition supply. American production methodology revolutionized manufacturing. Remington Rand's Syracuse plying, converging from typewriter production, achieved remarkable efficiency through innovation. They introduced broad rifling, cutting perfect barrels in single passes rather than traditional cut rifling requiring multiple passes. Statistical process control, developed by Walter Schuhart and implemented by Western electric engineers, maintained tolerances while increasing speed. By 1943, Remington Rand produced 1,000 pistols daily with fewer than 1% protection rate. The learning curve demonstrated American industrial adaptability. Colt, with decades of experience, required 1.2 man-hours to produce one M1911A, one frame in 1942. Remington Rand, starting from 0 firearms campaigns, achieved 0.8 man-hours per frame by 1943 through Imperial Industrial Engineering. Issaca Gun Company introduced fixture designs that reduced machining setups by 60%, innovations later adopted across all manufacturers. Parts interchangeability was absolute. In November 1943, Army Ordnance conducted a demonstration at Aberdeen Proving Ground. Armorers disassembled 100 M1911A1 pistols from different manufacturers, mixed all parts randomly, and reassembled them blindfolded. All 100 pistols functioned perfectly. This interchangeability proved crucial when depot-level maintenance involved assembling functional weapons from damaged ones. Japanese Type 14 parts, even from the same manufacturer, often acquired hand-fitting. The economic efficiency was staggering. In 1942, the unit cost of an M1911A1 with 31 dollars and 42 cents. By 1945, improved production methods reduced this to $15, less than half despite wartime inflation. The Japanese Type 14, requiring expensive hand-fitting, cost 78 yen throughout the war, equivalent to $31.20 in 1941, representing far greater portion of Japanese industrial capacity. Ancient production dwarfed weapon manufacturing. American factories produced approximately 3.5 billion rounds of .45 ACP during World War II. It equated to 1,862 rounds for every M1911A1 manufactured, sufficient for extensive training and combat conception. Factories 8mm Nambu production toted approximately 100 million rounds for 1926 to 1945, or 250 rounds per pistol over 2 decades. By 1945, Japanese forces allocated 20 rounds per pistol for entire campaigns. The control revealed philosophical differences. Every American M1911A1 underwent proof testing with high-pressure properties generating 30 hissons over sound of prayer. Barrels were air-gauged to ensure damage-show consistency. Function testing required 100 rounds without malfunction. Random samples into at 5,000 rounded dewey tests. Metallurgical analysis ensured propriety and theory composition. Japanese quality control, mail before war, attention to speed while hunting far. Weight war tad 14 as show to marks, dimensional variations, and fault metalled with a fault ains action sound. The supply chain comparison was equally telling. American manufacturers received specialized steel alloys, SAE 4140 barrels, 862-year frames. Used to exciting applications. Carbide cutting tools, themselves pledge of American industrial superiority, maintained precise dimensions through thousands of pikes. Japanese manufacturers, by 1944, used whatever steel was available. Captured Type 14 shows frames made from recycled shipper, both from artillery brass, and springs for salvage or to move parts. Subcontractor networks autobide American voyages. Grip diverters, caught pesticibly, fansiticably, key vehicularly, these millions of synthetic grips impervious to trial conditions. Spring manufacturers, Wolf Company, Associated Spring Corporation, provided consistent springs heat-treated for specific tension requirements. Magazine contractors, Scoville Manufacturing, Risden Manufacturing, produced magazines to tolerances ensuring universal fit. Japanese production remained vertically integrated within arsenals, limiting production capacity and preventing specialization benefits. The training ammunition allocation demonstrated different priorities. American forces allocated 240 rounds per man for basic pistol qualification, 500 rounds for advanced training. Combat units received 100 rounds mumsay for attainment training. Total training expenditure exceeded 500 million rounds. Different officers, pricket in their own ammunition, typically fired fewer than 100 hours iori. Many arrived in combat having fired their Type 14 fewer times than American Marines fired in single training sessions. Replacement rates revealed combat realities. American forces replaced approximately 15% of M1911A1 pistols annually due to combat loss, damage beyond repair, or excessive wear. The industrial base easily supported this attrition while increasing total inventory. Japanese forces couldn't replace losses. Units that lost pistols to combat damage simply went out. By Okinawa, many Japanese officers carried swords. Their pistols long since failed. A Pacific War's final counting revealed truths that transcended mere technical spectacles of prolonged statistics. In the crucial histories losses nay law, thought across knees, square miles of ocean, thousand vitings, the superiority of the M1911A1 over the Type 14 Nambu represented American industrial democracy's triumph over Japanese military feudalism. The mathematics of terminal ballistics were inexor. The 45 ACP's 230 grain bullet at 830 feet per second delivered 370 foot-pounds of kinetic energy, creating temporary wound cavities exceeding 4 inches diameter in ballistic gelatine. The 8mm Nambu's 102 grain bullet at 1,065 feet per second generated 256 foot-pounds, creating wound channels barely larger than caliber. This 44% allergy advantage translated directly to stopping power, the ability to immediately incapacitate an enemy before they could continue attacking. But energy alone didn't tell the complete story. The 45 ACP's heavy bullet retained velocity better, maintaining 89% of muscle energy at 50 yards versus 76% for the 8mm number. The larger frontal area, 0.451 inches versus 0.320 inches, created 90% greater tissue displacement. The subsonic velocity emanated ballistic pret, reducing shooter disorientation in confined speeds. The fleet war case expected reliably from fouled chans. Every technical parameter favored the American cartridge. The weapons themselves reflected their cartridge's characteristics. The M1911A1 robot construction, weighing 39 ounces empty, of valve recale operating phase shooting platform. The fingerlauncher trigger, breaking 4 to 5 part, enabled five-shot placement cartridge. The grip safety and manual safety prevented accidental discharge while allowing instant readiness. The 7-round magazine, while holding one less round than Type 14, could be changed in seconds, and the pistol 2 champion ran the magazine prison. The Type 14's attempted advantages proved illusory. Its lighter weight, 52 ounces, made recoil hard. The heavy, gritty trigger pull degraded accuracy. The safety location required two-handed operation. The magazine retention spring made reloading near impossible upon stress. The magazine discerned safety transferred magazine David into complete weapon freer. Every that imperator degraded combat effectiveness. Combat adaptations overwhelming. At Guadalcanal, Tarawa, Saipan, Iwo Jima, and Okinawa, the M1911A1 proved itself in thousands of close-quarters engagements. Marines and soldiers trusted their lives to the pistol, knowing it would function despite mud, sand, water, or neglect. The psychological impact multiplied its effectiveness. Japanese soldiers learned to fear the distinctive doom of the 45. Knowing meant immediate death. Post-war analysis by the United States Strategic Bombing Survey included extensive interviews with surviving Japanese officers. Colonel Susumu Nishiura, Staff officer with the 32nd Army on Okinawa, stated, "Your 40 caliber automatic pistol is rate feared. It will knock a man down with its truck strunties. Our pistols required multiple centimeters to stop the American soldier." This disparity in effectiveness was demoralizing to our forces. Lieutenant General Tadamichi Kuribayashi, commanding Japanese forces on Iwo Jima, wrote a fine report before his death. American aerial superiority overwhelming, and fatal weapons, particularly their powerful pistols, give them great advantage into a Hawaii where spiritual power came to call Kanku superiority. This admission from an officer who had spent years in America as a military attaché revealed Japanese recognition of their material inadequacy. The industrial disparity was insurmountable. American factories produced M1911 A1 pistols in 1943 low, over 600,000. In Japan manufactured tight tiers in 2 decades. American quality improved throughout production while Japanese quality collapsed. American ammunition supply was unlimited while Japanese forces hoarded every cartridge. American training was extensive while Japanese training was minimal. Every measurable parameter favored American forces by factors of 3 to 10 to 1. The Hume cost crystallized easy advantages. Throughout the Pacific Wall, Marine and Army units armed with M1911 A1 pistols consistently achieved kill ratios exceeding 10 to 1 in close combat. On Iwo Jima, 6,821 Americans died versus 21,000 Japanese, a 3 to 1 ratio despite attacking certified presence. On Okinawa, 12,520 Americans died versus 110,000 Japanese, an 8.8 to 1 ratio. While many factors contributed to these disparities, the effectiveness of individual weapons in close combat played a crucial role. Veterans' testimonies provide the fine verdict. Marine gun Sergeant John Basilone, before he died on Iwo Jima, wrote, "The 45-122 were finest military pistol ever made. His I said China never fails. One shot ends any argument." Technical Sergeant Charles Lindbergh of the 3rd Marine Division stated, "That pistol saved more Marine lives than any other weapon. When Japanese soldiers got inside our line at night, the 45 is what stung them." Japanese veterans aside American 40 ACP its poured into scars. Dr. Teru Ueno, treating veteran Tokyo Veteran Hospital post-war, noted, "When the American .45 come is to where me recognize you decades later." The massive tissue damage created distinctive scarring patterns. Veterans shot with this weapon considered themselves fortunate to have survived. The M1911 A1's legacy extended far beyond World War II. Special Operations Forces carried through Korea, Vietnam, and into the 21st century. The Type 14 vanished immediately after Japanese surrender, replaced by American weapons. Modern Japanese self-defense forces have never attempted to design indigenous pistols, recognizing the futility of competing with Western small arms development. The broader implications transcended weapons. The M1911 A1 represented American industrial democracy, standardized, mass-produced, effective, and available to every soldier regardless of rank or wealth. The Type 14 represented Japanese military feudalism, handcrafted, inconsistent, inadequate, and restricted to officers who could afford purchase. These weapons embodied their society's approaches to warfare. In the final analysis, the Pacific War validated the Thompson-LaGarde test's conclusion for 1904. In great combat, stopping pride determines survival. In 1911, A1 delivered that stopping power reliably, consistently, in any condition, millions of times. The Type 14 Nambu failed to deliver adequate performance beyond ideal conditions. Its disparity multiplied the means individual combats, contributed significantly to American victory. The mathematics of this and Pacific military and unforbidden. when Thompson-LaGarde charged Chinese pillboxes on Tarawa, when Sergeant John Basilone held Henderson Field on Guadalcanal, when thousands of unnamed Marines and soldiers fought in nameless caves on forgotten islands, they carried a weapon that failed. The M1911, A1 automatic pistol firing a fortified ACP cartridge, averaging a pull to 230 green projectile on 830 feet per second, delivering 370 pounds of kinetic energy, creating wound channels that immediately incapacitated enemy combatants. This simple equation, mass times velocity squared divided by 450,240, determines survival in close quarters engagements. The Japanese Type 14 Nambu fired 102 grain-bladed wind fast at 65 feet per second for 236 pounds of energy, consistently failed this mathematical test of combat effectiveness. The production statistics tell the criticize story. American factories manufacture 1,870,000 Shanghai 42 M1911 A1 pistols during World War II, supported by 3.5 billion rand of ammunition. Japan produced approximately 400,000 Type 14 pistols over 2 decades, with perhaps 100 million rounds total. This 4.7 to 1 to version of vantage in pistols and 35 to 1 vantage ammunition. During just warriors repent industrial supremacy, that no one spare to park occur. But beyond Munbridge lay fundamental truth about modern warfare. Victory belongs to nations to combine industrial capacity with engineering excellence, that value individual soldiers' lives enough to equip them with the best possible weapons, that learn from combat experience, and systematically improve their tools of war. The M1911 A1 embodied these principles. The Type 14 Nambu presented their antithesis. In the end, the Pacific War's outcome was determined by many factors: strategy, logistics, code-breaking, naval power, and atomic weapons. But in those desperate moments when combat reduced to its most primitive form, one man facing another at arm's length of death say his way, the American Marine soldier with the M1911 A1 had overwhelming advantage over his Japanese opponent with a Type 14 Nambu. The Thunberg 45 ACP echoed from Pearl Harbor to Tokyo Bay. Each shot a sole but decisive contribution to victory. The M1911 A1 didn't win the Pacific War alone, but in the brutal arithmetic of close combat, it ensured that American forces held a crushing advantage that multiplied across thousands of engagements to help determine the war's outcome. In this mathematics of survival, where stopping power equaled victory and mechanical failure meant death, America's M1911, a 1.45 caliber pistol stood supreme, and Japan's Type 14 Nambu was utterly, catastrophically, and fatally outgunned. The last word belongs to Fleet Admiral Chester Nimitz, who understood the importance of weapons and deterrent of victory. Lean the superiority and vital weapons like the M1911 automatic pistol gave our Marine and soldier decisive victories in close combat. When battles came down to individual fights at close quarters, American forces prevailed because they carried superior weapons that functioned reliably in the worst conditions. This technical superiority, multiplied means of times across the Pacific, helped secure our victory